Hello folks, good evening, welcome to the webinar tonight. My name is Dr. David, and if you can hear me or if you can see me, just let me know you're okay, let me know you're in. Apologize, we're starting a little late, we're trying to get the technical thing taken care of, but we shall start quickly. I need to get some feedback from Sherry first to make sure that everything is okay. Sherry, talk to me. Sound fine, look fine. Okay, good. How's the video? Video's good. Okay, good. And folks, if you're on, just give us a quick wave by typing in, say hi, David, or whatever you want to say. Just make sure you're okay. I'm going to be starting in a few minutes. If you want to be familiar with how this webinar system works, just look at the to my right. You'll see some instructions on how to use the video system. And please say hi, okay? Let's know who's on. Unless I see a chat from you, I won't know who's on, and that makes me feel very, very lonely. Okay, so please let me know. We will be starting in a few minutes while people are coming in. Hello, Cora, and the newbie. Hello, newbie. Is that your real name? Jenny, hi. How are you? Long time. I think you're in Canada, right? It's been a long time since we spoke. It's good to see you. Hello, Joy. Alan, thank you. I appreciate that. So I am not alone. Appreciate that. Looking forward to a really good presentation tonight. Well, even if I say so myself, hopefully it's going to be good. All right, let's talk. Give me a call. Hey, Doris, how are you? Okay, look, it's a little hot here because I'm actually winning. I don't usually do this, but I've been cautioned about being too casual, so I'm having to wear a jacket, and then there are lights all around me just so to make the video quality okay. So this is tough. It's really, really, really tough. So you guys just pray for me, okay? Okay, good. It looks like we've got quite a few people on. I think we can proceed. Hey, Bernie, how are ya? Okay. All right. Well, we're talking about taming inflammation. I think this is a very, very, very important topic. And those of you who are joining us, I tell you what, I'm going to start the recording right now. Hope it works well. What time is it? 5 minutes afterwards. Goodness gracious. I've got a new microphone, so I'm still not used to it. Okay. All right. Are we all set? Good to go? Good. Alright, let us start the record button, and then we shall go from there. Make sure everything is working okay. Well, hello everyone again, and welcome to our webinar tonight. We'll be talking about, well, I'm Dr. David. You can call me David. I just put the doctor before it because there are so many Davids around. We'll be talking about inflammation tonight, and I think it's a very, very, very important topic. It's one of those fundamentals that we talk about. With me on the webinar, you can't see her, but she is running the back show, and that's my partner and friend Sherry Plett, and that's her. No, we are not married. Okay, because I know some people have kind of thought about it and wondered, and nope, she's happily married, very happily married to a wonderful husband and 4 wonderful kids. She said, thank God we're not married. That's low. That is really, really low. Anyway, our goal with these webinars, obviously, and many of you have heard this before, is that our goal is to present a resource that gives the layperson as complete a picture as is possible about health. And you may be there saying, well, we've heard this before, and there are people doing it. There are lots of people doing the same thing. Well, that's not true. I left medicine and left my country many years ago, and in search of someone doing what we are just beginning to do. And I tell you, we've been looking. I looked and looked and looked and searched, and we are just. I couldn't find it. I just couldn't find anyone who was doing anything that was as close to what we're doing. And I think it's a real need out there. People need to be presented a picture of health that they can grasp and run with, and they can apply. And that they don't want things that are so exoteric. are so full of medical jargon that they are confused. They want things that are clear-cut, and that's one of our goals with these webinars, to help present as clear-cut a picture as possible. And we've been very, very fortunate to have the support of many of the speakers that you have probably heard, and that who will continue to help us in the future. Let me just say a few things about myself. I've got a very varied background. I've been in the Army, I've been in business, of course medicine. I treated cancer patients for a while, and that was really during my training as a cancer oncologist, radiation oncologist. That was when I really began to see and search after the things that we are beginning to produce with these webinars. I'm also very, very interested in sports. I love to speak. Both my parents were college professors, so I guess that's in the genes a little bit. We started these webinars about two years ago, and they are going strong. If you ever want to see what is coming up, just go to our website, buildingstrengthwebinars.com, and you will find out what we are up to. And you haven't seen anything yet, even if I say so myself. These are the topics I've treated, and you probably won't be able to see them too well. They're a little small, but I've done quite a few, obviously because I'm the host. So but if you look at the topics, acid-base balance, how the immune system works. Okay, good. They're easy to read. They're how the immune system works, how the endocrine system works, how stress affects your body, inflammation. All these things, these are what I would refer to as the fundamentals, because it has always been obvious to me that if people understand the fundamentals, if they understand how their minds and their bodies work, it's more likely that they will take intelligent decisions, or make intelligent decisions and take intelligent actions about their health. A lot of the trouble and problems we have health-wise in this country and around the world is because people are pretty much ignorant about these basic things, and so we're hoping to change that. And from what I've seen, when it comes to as you age, and a lot of you who are on these webinars are probably in your 50s and above, but as you age, you begin to see patterns begin to form, things begin to slow down. You're not as sharp mentally as you used to be. Your eyesight, of course, is failing. Your hearing is failing. You're not as perky when you wake up as you used to be. You begin to develop aches and pains. And these 5 things, they are the core things that happen to you as you begin to age. Pro-inflammatory compounds, they increase. Your susceptibility to free radical damage increases. You don't repair quickly enough from the damage that the oxidative stress does to you. And we'll explain that in a little bit, but we have already done a few webinars on antioxidants and free radical damage. Acidity increases as you age. One of the reasons, obviously, is the older you get, the more dehydrated you are. You're not, your body does not retain or take care or handle fluids as effectively as you used to, or your body used to when you were in your 20s. And the ages 18 to about 25, 26, the prime. They are when you are at your best, physically, mentally. That just comes naturally. That's if you don't do anything. That's just the age range where things are at their peak, mentally and physically, like I said. Of course, when you get to be around 30, things begin to go south unless you do something about it. And again, those are the things that we want to bring out, because in the final analysis, that's what is known as the wisdom of the body, the intelligence of the body. Your body knows what to do. Your body can and will continually do what it needs to do to make you healthy, to correct problems, to heal itself. But you've got to give it the right tools. And of course, primarily, the primary tool there is nutrition. The body heals itself, and proper nutrition is what your body needs to perform that task. And so we need to know what that proper nutrition means. It is not just going and having lots of fruits and veggies. That's part of it, but the simple truth is that what was in those fruits and veggies 20, 30, 40 years ago is no longer there in the right amounts. So even though you might be living a vegetarian lifestyle, it is still not enough. and research is even showing that that is not enough as well. So we, again, our goal is to give you as complete a picture as possible when it comes to health. And let's begin our topic tonight, which is taming inflammation. And here we go. Remember, you can always type in a question in the chat box to your, I guess that would be, that's just below my video screen, and you can see whatever, and I'll be sure to check it from time to time, although my main focus of course will be with these webinars. I hope I'm coming across well. I hope I'm coming across clearly. Just let me know that too if I'm not coming across well enough. Alright, taming inflammation. What is the goal? Obviously is to help you understand how the importance of inflammation, and what you can do to keep inflammation at bay. Our bodies are constantly in a situation where they are prone to be more in an inflammatory state as opposed to a non-inflammatory state. Why? And I'm going to explain that too. Simply because our bodies are constantly being under attack. We are living in a toxic planet. There are hostilities from every angle, and so it's very, very important that you understand that you just can't coast through life and hope that things work for you. You've got to take some proactive steps towards making sure that you remain healthy to your 90s and 100s. Why study inflammation? Understanding the threats to our health. We're just going to do an overview of that, how your body defends itself, how and why inflammation occurs. Remember, inflammation is very, very important. It is not the enemy. Acute versus chronic inflammation, screaming inflammation versus silent inflammation, and these were terms. We're going to, well, after this, of course, we're going to give you some recommendations on what to do to keep inflammation at bay. And these terms, screaming and silent inflammation, were gotten from Dr. Barry Sears, who has been on our webinar several times as well, and we've been very honored to have him. Some of the information that we'll be sharing tonight are from his book, The Anti-Inflammation Zone, which is a really, really good book. And I encourage you to get that. Dr. Marvin too has shared a lot about inflammation and omega-3 fatty acids, so we have some of his materials as well. Question: why study inflammation? Well, first of all, the question is, what is inflammation? Well, inflammation is what goes on. Well, okay, let me get back. Inflammation, primarily, like I said, is a good thing, but there's something called silent inflammation, which goes on, if unchecked, affects the vital organs like the brain, the heart, the pancreas, causing diabetes, and other parts of the body that are very, very important. The kidneys, again, are very, very important. I don't know why it is, but there's something about the anatomy of these organs that make them a little bit more susceptible to damage from inflammation. I wish they were more I don't know why the anatomy should be that way, but there's something about the anatomy that makes them more susceptible. And so inflammation, if not controlled, will and is what results in most of the diseases, the chronic diseases that we see today. What is not included here in this list are the autoimmune diseases. We used to have very few of them, like 3 or 4, 20, 30 years ago, but now there's been an explosion, so to speak, of autoimmune diseases, including an explosion of allergies and allergic reactions to different kinds of things, from toxins, chemical toxins, to bacteria. And the bottom line in all these conditions, is inflammation. So it is very, very, very important that we understand what triggers inflammation and what makes inflammation go out of control. I'm going to show you a few statistics here. You probably won't be able to see this too well, but okay, let me just go on to the next slide. Quickly explain. This is a list of the top 10 causes of death in the United States, and then they divide it into male and female. But in the final analysis, the top five obviously are heart disease, cancer, strokes, chronic respiratory tract infections, accidents, and diabetes. I really think diabetes is not number 6, but probably number 5 as well. And the underlying factor in all these, except of course the accidents, is inflammation. So very, very important. It's on the media now. They're beginning to doctors, researchers are beginning to realize and recognize that this is the underlying factor, and you see it right there. It says inflammation. Here, let me make sure I get my tool up, highlight tool. So there you go. Hope you can see this. There you go. Inflammation. There it is. That is the silent killer. Alright, let me move on to the next one. What is inflammation? This is probably a technical definition, but it's from Barry Sears' book. It's a complex orchestration of pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory events, usually associated with pain, is mediated by substances called eicosanoids, and these are tiny hormones. They're not like the hormones like estrogen and progesterone and cortisol and all the others. These are a little bit even more primitive hormones that are pretty much exist in every living organism, and they apparently control the bigger hormones that we know about, and they're called eicosanoids. And there are two kinds. They are the pro-inflammatory eicosanoids, and then they are the anti-inflammatory eicosanoids. What we know is that we have an unbalance, most people do have an unbalance of have more pro-inflammatories than the anti-inflammatories. So our goal in health and wellness is to keep the balance, is to bring the levels of the pro down to the right level, and the levels of the anti up to the right level. Most of us have very, very low levels of anti-inflammatories. We know that in typical medicine they are treated by aspirin, NSAIDs, COX-2 inhibitors, and the big guns, steroids. You don't want to be on steroids for too long. Alright, I'm just going to do a quick recap. We've done this presentation before on improving your body's defensive capabilities, how our bodies defend ourselves, because it's very important that you understand how the body functions to keep injury, to keep insults at bay. Now, when there's a breach, when the body is not, if for one reason or the other, the body is not able to do to perform its defensive role, and there's a breach, the next step obviously is inflammation. And then if inflammation doesn't work, then there's another step, and then another step, and we're going to show you a couple of them as we go. So I have this picture of a fortress here, and that's again just to indicate that our bodies are meant to be that way. There are a lot of toxins and things that threaten our health, and there's this picture here, up here, and you see everything from emotional stress to chemicals to heavy metals to biological agents. We know a lot about the swine flu, the bird flu, all the different things, the viruses that we've been screaming about for the past couple of months and years actually. And of course Dr. Eaton and Dr. Pedersen did an excellent job on the silver solution, and how silver, nano silver specifically, is now helping, and they are now showing this, showing how it works. And now even the government is beginning to take notice. They are beginning to use these even among their soldiers and our military men in the fields. They're beginning to use them because they're seeing just how powerful this this natural approach, or this natural technology is to helping deal with toxins and viruses and bacteria. The big one, which we are all concerned about, and is right there, which is actually within the body, and that is free radical damage, otherwise called oxidative stress. This is what happens in your body whether or not you're being attacked by toxins. Your body has cells, and the cells produce energy. The byproduct of energy Many times the waste products are actually called oxidative radicals or free radicals, and they cause damage to the cells. It's been estimated that over 10,000 hits to our DNA occur each and every day. And the way to keep that under control, to keep that at bay, obviously has a lot to do with using antioxidants. Your body produces them, but many times it is not enough, so you've got to get them in your diet. And I have this picture here to show that, well, what happens to your cell happens to the human being as a whole. And I'm just going to breeze through some of these so we can get to the main topic. We also mentioned in the last presentation that your body deals with toxins by avoidance, the innate defensive mechanisms, which is what we're going to be talking about. And then the other three, we talked about them some more in the last presentation. So the question is, what triggers inflammation? Primarily, the thing that triggers inflammation is an insult, an injury to the body, an injury to the cell. We've kind of shown you the different kinds of insults that could happen, from a bacterial infection to a chemical toxicity to anything, from a cut, whatever it is. Your body's response to a breach, body's response is inflammation. And I'm going to show you a quote from Barry Sears in a little while, but I kind of like categorize them again. It basically is still the same thing as the picture I showed you. And I'm going to skip up to that. So what happens when there's inflammation is this. There's an injury called the initiating effect, and then there's the response, which is called a pro-inflammatory response. And then when things seem to have been taken care of, the body or the cells or the inflammation backs down, and that's mediated by the anti-inflammatories. So there's an injury, then there's an attack, and then there's the backing off to clean away the debris, to restore the normal order of things. This should be a transitory thing. This should be a temporary thing. It should happen just to deal with a condition, and then it should back off. Unfortunately, this, too many of the times, does not. The backing off process, the anti-inflammatory process, does not go on perfectly enough or well enough. And again, this happens as you age. The backing off when you're in your 20s, this event works very well. You've got the injury, the anti-inflammatory stuff with the immune system, your blood vessels, platelets, they all come in, they attack the problem, and then finally they back off. Here's another picture, and this again shows you what happens in normal inflammation. There's the injury. You've got the inflammatory agents. Lots of substances, chemicals are released, including the carcinoid cytokines. These mediate inflammation. Inflammation takes place when the inflammation is in full bloom. You see all kinds of things, from heat to pain to swelling to fever. Hey, by the way, one of the reasons there's fever is not to give you a bad time, but really the increase in temperature, either around the local area where there's a problem, or the entire body. If there's a increase in temperature in the entire body, it's all to kill bacteria. Your body actually makes the temperature, raises the temperature, makes it higher to destroy bacteria. Most bacteria do not survive in feverish conditions, so your body is really trying to help you. And again, that's part of the inflammatory process. When that is done, like I mentioned, there should be suppression, then there should be recovery and repair. And there are players in this entire system, and we're going to be going back to this list consistently throughout this presentation. This is going to be a long presentation, so just hope you've got your blankets. I have mine right here covering my feet because I've got the air conditioner on, and so my feet are covered with the blanket. So if you bought your blankets, make sure you use them. Okay, so don't worry about writing this down. We're going to get back to it over and over again. Please be sure to send me a chat if you have a question or you want me to go back to something or to clarify something. Okay. This is called level 3 because this is the third level at which your body deals with invasions and destruction. The immune system is really the most important aspect of this entire inflammatory process. is the immune cells that migrate to the 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 lesion or where the problem is. The immune cells, again, they're like an army. They're the ones that detect the problem. They send in the troops to take care of the issue, and they're the ones who back off. And I have this kind of like picture that I used a couple of times to describe the immune system, because there are many kinds of cells in the immune system. The one I want to call your attention to is the big guy up here, Big Mac, otherwise called the macrophage, or the macrophage, depending on where you're from. Now, the macrophage is what, first of all, sends signals when there's an injury to call in the different troops to deal with the problem. The macrophage is also the one who helps orchestrate and mobilize and direct the activities of the different kinds of immune cells. And when everything is said and done, it's the macrophage that goes in and eats up the debris that helps to quell the inflammation. So the macrophage is a very, very important part of the immune system, and it does a lot of those things together. And so knowing what the macrophage needs to do its work is very, very important. What we've just described is acute inflammation. Acute means temporary. It's a short time thing. And again, it is to deal with the situation and then to back off. It is very, very, very important, because without inflammation we would be sitting ducks for opportunistic organisms, which of course would be germs and bugs, and injuries to our bodies that would never heal. So inflammation is what helps our bodies to heal, and from experience I can tell you that, and I'm going to give you a few examples. Gordon Pedersen was on was it on Tuesday? It was on Tuesday, yeah. That's him. He had a motorcycle injury, and he actually broke, I think, part of his eye socket. Major injury, and you can see that whole place is looking blue right now around his eye, or even over his eye as well. And you can see the gash there. And he gave us this picture to demonstrate how quickly his silver solution worked on him. It helped to reduce the inflammation and the swelling. It helped to stimulate the immune system to do what it needs to do, and helps his body to heal faster. And so that is just to further amplify what we're talking about, to further confirm what Dr. Barry Sears said. It is there, inflammation is there to help your body heal. One of the most common places for inflammation, believe it or not, is the mouth. As a matter of fact, periodontal disease, otherwise called periodontitis, or gum disease. That's when you see the gum is inflamed. You can see these are the teeth. Not too healthy looking teeth, I have to tell you that right now. But you can see these are all very, very red regions around the teeth. And that's periodontitis. It simply means inflammation of the area around the teeth, primarily the gum. And again, this is happening as a result of inflammation to deal with the issue. Maybe there's a bacterial infection. It's not too hard to believe that just by looking at looking at this mouth. But again, it is to help. One of the commonest causes, or one of the commonest places for inflammation, of course, are in the joints. We see joint issues a lot, especially as you grow older. Joint pains in the wrist, in the fingers. And I just had this picture. Sherry actually sent this to me, but I had this picture here to show you kind of like a couple of parts of this joint, and you can see that there could be an inflammation right within the joint, between the two cartilages. And this is the cartilage right here, the top cartilage and then the bottom cartilage. There could be an inflammation there, and that could have come from wear and tear, or from one injury. And the inflammatory agents could go there and really help to clean things up. There could be an inflammation of the tendon, and that's what you call tendinitis. Happens a lot with sports players. Maybe you hear about the word tennis elbow with tennis players or racquetball players. There's an inflammation of the tendon, and this happens from strain and injury to, just not direct trauma, but injury to the tendons around the elbow, primarily as a result of overuse. The body needs to recover, it needs to rest, and so the place gets inflamed. What else? There could be inflammation in the joints, and then where else could there be inflammation? Right, it could be inflammation in the muscles, but that's a lot rarer. That's another picture over there, and that's me. I play a lot of racquetball. This every time I look at this picture, I really have. I mean, this brings back really sad memories because this was a game. I mean, my buddy and I were in the tournament against the two best racquetball players in the state, and we were crushing them. We really had them down. I mean, we had the way the game goes. You have to play 3 games, each one to 15. And the first game we destroyed them, 15 to 5. They didn't get anything more than 5. The second game we were 12. We had 3 points left, and then we just fell apart, and they just caught up and beat us. And in the third game, I don't even want to talk about the third game. But anyway, the reason, well, they went on to win the tournament, so that was really a sad experience for me. But the reason I'm trying to say this is that I've had several injuries. Injury to my eye, actually my left eardrum was totally ruptured from a direct hit by a ball. It healed. My eye too was healed, and again, that was caused by inflammation. Inflammation is what helps to heal and help my body to recover. And that is what is happening to your body each and every day, every single second. Your body is constantly being attacked. Alright, so we talked about the normal process of inflammation. Let's go on to the abnormal. What happens when things don't go as perfectly as they should, or as perfectly as they did when we were in our teens and 20s. That is called chronic inflammation. Chronic obviously means a protracted period of time. And what happens, I showed you the normal inflammation. So where you have the insult, the injury, inflammation takes place, it is suppressed, and then everything comes back to normal. Now, in chronic inflammation, or when inflammation goes awry, there's the injury, or the initiating event, there's inflammation, but instead of it going to suppression, it goes to what we call non-suppression. So it basically continues. It's like debris. The immune cells, they migrate to that place, signals are sent, they fall over themselves, they pile up in that area, they keep attacking themselves, signals are missed, they actually begin to destroy normal tissue, and they begin to do crazy things which they should not have done. And I'm using layman's terms as much as possible, but I'll probably explain a few more things there. But bottom line is that in chronic inflammation, the environment in which a good, clean, inflammatory process should take place doesn't exist. The environment is not optimal for good, clean inflammation. And I want to show you again. You probably can guess what that environment would be. Obviously, that environment will have more toxins. For instance, there will be lots of free radicals. There may be a bacterial infection. There might even be a foreign object at the site that doesn't go away. You've heard those nightmares, those crazy stories about sometimes. Probably shouldn't mention that. Okay. But let's talk about what goes wrong. And I have this quote from Louis Pasteur, who many of you know. I think he's the discoverer of the germ theory. He's the one who discovered, the problem why people are getting sick is not because there's a voodoo person or black magic witch person casting spells, but because of microbes that you can actually demonstrate under the microscope. And that was called the germ theory, and a lot of people, oh wow, we now know what's going on. It was a revelation at that time. But here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing, and he admitted it on his dying bed, and he, in some cases, recanted some of the statements he had made. Because what happened was that everybody now began to look for a germ or a virus, and they were like, if they see any tiny amount of the germ or the virus or the bacteria, they would say, well, this is what is causing it. Not always so. Not always so, because Lots of us have different germs and different bacteria in our bodies, but we are pretty much healthy. So what Louis Pasteur eventually came up with was that, listen, it's not just the fact that the germs are present, it's the fact that the environment in which the germs are operating is conducive to them. It's conducive to their operation, it's conducive to their multiplication. And that is what causes disease. Not simply the presence of the germ, but really the presence of the germ and a sick cell, a sick tissue, a sick body. That is what creates the environment for disease. And so that's why he said the microbe is nothing, the germ is nothing, it is the environment in which that microbe operates that causes the problem. So let's look at some of the things that can cause that. So obviously we mentioned toxic load, inadequate nutrition. Believe it or not, if your nutrition is subpar, infection, inflammation will occur. If you're under emotional stress, if there's a physical obstruction, there may be a nail is stuck in your foot, and obviously if you're normal and healthy, if you're healthy, you would immediately know that there's a nail stuck in your foot. But there are people, and some of them will be diabetics, whose sensation of pain is lacking in the feet or in the fingers, and so sometimes they can actually have a small tiny object that is stuck in the palms or in the soles of the feet, and that becomes a focus for a continual process of inflammation. And that just becomes worse and worse and worse. Here's a pictorial sketch of the environment that is good for inflammation. And so you see, there's emotional stress, acidity, and again that happens as you grow older, poor nutrition, excess fats. We have a few points to talk about that. Insulin resistance, toxic overload, bacterial infection, and hormonal imbalance, and that includes the pro-inflammatory or the pro-inflammatory eicosanoids that we mentioned, because those are hormones as well. Excuse me. I hate that stuff, but I've been told it's good for me, so I take it. We cannot complete this without talking about stress. So stress does play a huge role, and I have this picture called what we could refer to as the central governing system of the human body. Your emotions, how you think, how you feel, what goes on inside there, plays a huge role in regulating what goes on in your nervous system, your endocrine system, your immune system, and of course your 60+ trillion cells. If your emotions, if you're under stress, if you're lonely, if you're upset, if you are bored, if you're suffering from grief, we'll be having Dr. Ruff speak on Tuesday on grief and loss and living life fully after that. So the emphasis obviously is on living life fully as opposed to the grief itself. But the point is, grief, emotional stress can shut down not just your systems, but it can also affect the individual cells, causing damage to the nucleus, and also can increase inflammation, because things like emotional stress raise the levels of chemicals called cytokines, and we're going to get to that in a minute. They raise the level of cytokines, which are pro-inflammatory substances. Remember, pro means for. They help accelerate inflammation. Let me know, folks, if you have any questions. Let's know how we are doing. If there are any issues, just send us a text or a chat. I see someone has given me some medical information here. Okay, all right. Well, we'll have to come to that later on. Okay, depression, anger, and hostility. These are the big three emotions you got to watch out for. Depression, anger, and hostility all raise C-reactive protein levels, especially if it's chronic. If it's chronic, please, you got to watch out for it. You got to watch out for it. Okay, we've talked about acute inflammation. We've talked about chronic inflammation. Now, what we've pretty much emphasized are really the more obvious things, what we see: pains in our fingers, pains in our feet. That's chronic, but it's called screaming, yelling inflammation, simply because it's something that we perceive. There's another more sinister kind of inflammation, a more sinister chronic inflammation called silent inflammation, which is something we don't sense, but it's going on nevertheless. And unfortunately, you never know about it until you hear that someone has just dropped dead on a Monday morning, probably before 9 o'clock, of a massive heart attack, because the inflammation has been going on for a long period of time, and he thought he was healthy. He went for checkups, nothing was detected, and he thought he was in excellent shape. And that story happens all too often. Again, it is because that inflammation, that destruction, is silent. Alright, okay, I did say I was going to mention some screaming inflammation. Let's look at some more examples of screaming inflammation. Heartburn, for instance, is a pretty common thing. You've got, let me show you a picture. You take something spicy and boom, right up here, that's the junction between the esophagus and the stomach. It's called the lower esophageal sphincter. Anyway, right up there is usually where heartburn occurs, and that's a lot because this area is a little lax, so there's some regurgitation of the acid in the stomach back into this area, and of course acid in the esophagus is a bad thing, and so that causes irritation. And of course, remember what we said: if there's an insult, if there's an injury, it causes irritation, and the next response is what? Inflammation. Usually it's an acute thing, but if the insult persists, well, then it becomes chronic, and that's what we have in heartburn. Alright, and here's a more pictorial view, and you can see the stomach contents get up through the lower esophageal sphincter, and many times this bottom area here, becomes so irritated over a long period of time that eventually becomes cancerous, because persistent inflammation causes destruction of cells, including the nuclei of cells, and once damage happens to the DNA, which is in the nucleus, once damage happens in the DNA of the nucleus, that eventually causes a mutation and eventually causes a cancer cell to arise. And so inflammation is one, if not the most important cause of cancer. Arthritis, we've mentioned that, and that's the knee joint again, and it could be inflammation of the cartilage, there you go. It could be inflammation of the ligaments, or it could be inflammation of the tendons. Whatever it is, that's painful, and you experience that, and that's when you go to the doctor and they give you pills. The commonest sites of inflammation are in the fingers, the knees, the hip, and the elbow. Again, inflammation drugs are given to you for that, and some of the drugs that are commonly prescribed are aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen, COX-2 inhibitors. Now that's it. What that simply means is that COX is an enzyme in the liver that helps to that gets the inflammatory process going. It keeps the inflammatory process going. And so what these smart drugs do, these COX-2 enzyme inhibitors do, is that they they stop that enzyme from working, and so that hopefully stalls the inflammation. And once the inflammation stalls, you've got relief from pain, because inflammation also causes pain. And of course, if that doesn't work, you go to the big guns, the corticosteroids. You know, here's the problem. We think that because the COX enzyme is inhibited, that's all that these drugs do. Not so. These drugs also affect other parts of our bodies, and they can cause major problems, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, I think. Oh yeah, here it is. The problem with these drugs, they can They may reduce inflammation, but they do not repair. Your body still has to do that. Your body still has to do the job of repairing itself. Now, if your body is in an acidic state, if your body, the nutrition is poor, if there are still toxins there, what's the chance that your body is going to recover or heal itself quickly? Very little. And so you keep using more and more anti-inflammatories, and it gives you temporary relief, but the process that is causing the inflammation, the injury, the insult, persists, and your body is not able to mount up a good repair process, and so it persists, is what I'm trying to say. Now, the other problem are the side effects. Nearly as many people in the U.S. die every year from the recommended use of anti-inflammatory drugs as die from AIDS. Can you believe that? I was shocked when I saw that. So you're taking a drug for a simple problem, and it could lead to a major issue. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you should stop using these drugs. Certainly not. I truly believe in medications, believe it or not, and I'm not just saying that just to make you feel good or to placate some people. I truly believe in them. I mean, I come from a third world country, and I tell you what, most people over the age of 5 years, a lot of them are alive today because of the medication from research and from some of these great pharmaceutical companies. So I'm by no means saying you should not use drugs. Here's what I'm trying to say. As you use those drugs, remember what it is doing to your body and be prepared to compensate for that. A lot of that will have to do with nutrition. A lot of that will have to do with maybe seeking other complementary approaches to the medication. We talk about the chiropractor, we talk about prolotherapy, we talk about nutritional supplementation. All those things have to be brought to bear when you're dealing with major issues, because if you look at the screen there, you see all the different things that can happen with long-term use of anti-inflammatory drugs. So you've got to be on top. You've got to know what is going on. So I'm going to have a few suggestions here. The players, remember we're still talking about chronic inflammation, but specifically the screaming inflammation right now. I hate that stuff. Did I say that already? Well, I mean, gotta take it, but it's good stuff. Okay, remember the players. We showed them earlier at the beginning. The insults is right up there. So obviously, if you're wanting to deal effectively with inflammation, you've got to take the offending agent away. You've got to find a way to deal with it, excrete it, eliminate it, take it out of your body, or avoid it completely. That has to be the starting point. You've got to also help with it. You've got to support the immune system. Make sure the immune system is working well, because even though there might be an overactivity of the immune system, it is not because the immune system is working well, it's because the immune system has gone haywire. That's why you're having chronic inflammation. Again, inflammation should be a transient thing. It should be a quick fix and then regression. You've got to also think about the cytokines and the chemicals that are going on. The best thing to do is to regulate them, not just cut them off, but regulate them, bring things back into balance. You've got also have to deal with the pain somehow, because obviously, and that's what the drugs do. They help you deal with the pain. However, are there safer methods out there to deal with pain that have no side effects? We live in the 21st century. We live in the 21st century, so sure there are. Absolutely. I'm going to show you a few examples. Alright, natural anti-inflammatories. We've seen an explosion in nutritional supplementation. I mean, it's like everybody and his, well, sister and mother has jumped on the bandwagon, and you see nutritional companies springing up everywhere. Some are really good, some are just junk, to be quite frank. And so one of the things that we do with these webinars is to seek out the ones that are really making a difference, that have good science, they have good technologies, they have good products, and we have them on to come speak about their some call them nutraceuticals, others call them juice or pills or whatever it is. We look out for them and we bring them on. One of the key things when you're talking about anti-inflammatories are, of course, the omega-3 fatty acids, and Dr. Sears has come on and done an excellent presentation on his brand of omega-3s, and he tells you what separates his omega-3s from others, and he shows you how to detect a fake, and he calls it the toothpick test. The toothpick test, and he talks about that in his presentation. Mangosteen, the mangosteen fruit. Ever heard? Do you know any company that deals with the mangosteen fruit? I know a couple myself. The key thing in the mangosteen fruit are the xanthones, and these are phytochemicals. Phyto means plant chemicals. These are chemicals that, from what I understand, and it was one of the top, very well-known doctor who studied this, and he said the xanthones are the most potent anti-inflammatories, natural anti-inflammatories known to man, and they work very well. Now, one caution, one note of caution I want to sound is, if you're having kidney failure or kidney disease, you want to stay away from the xanthones. Something about the kidney doesn't work too. They don't work too well on the kidney, so watch out for that. The acai berry, very important. Pointing the wrong way. The acai berry, again from the rainforest, and a very, very interesting company. We're going to have probably get some of them on to talk about some of their breakthroughs too. Glyconutrients, polysaccharides. Oh my goodness. One of the things that helped set me on the right track when it comes to thinking about nutrition and thinking about health are these fantastic molecules called glyconutrients. A lot can be said about them, but all I'm going to say right now is that glyconutrients help the immune system. It helps to regulate, modulate, help the immune system function the way it should. And they are also anti-inflammatories. Curcumin is a product, or is a compound found in a plant called turmeric, which is not used in the Ayurvedic medicine, medicine mainly in India, East India, the country in Asia, and they found that to be a very potent anti-inflammatory. If you want specific recommendations, you can go ahead and contact us, but I'm not going to mention any brand names right now. I don't know why, but I just probably not now. I'm just not sure this is the best time for that. The human body heals itself, and proper nutrition provides the resources it needs to accomplish that task. Proper nutrition, okay? We've mentioned some key things that you can put, and those are the specifics. You can't just take the specifics without paying attention to the other aspects of nutrition, because that is all part of the whole picture, of the whole nutrition picture. In other words, you've got to pay attention to your diet as well. There is no escaping that. Let's talk about the nervous system. Obviously, pain is the main thing that brings a person to the doctor, especially, and that's when they discover maybe it's an inflammatory process. But pain is the main issue. The chiropractor is an extremely important part of the health equation, and I can say that personally because of my personal experience. I injured myself in racquetball, and chiropractic helped to get my back in shape. Couldn't walk for a while. But the thing about the spine and the nervous system and the back, the spinal cord that extends from the brain all the way back to the small of your back, is that it is ensheathed, or it is covered and encased in a bony structure called the vertebra, the vertebral column, and the nerves spread out. I should have had a picture out there, but the nerves spread out from the spinal column through holes in the vertebrae. Now, if your posture is not right, or if there's anything that is in the way of the nerve outflow or inflow, then that can cause inflammation, amongst other things. Can cause issues in the gut, can cause issues in vital organs. So having your spine well aligned and solid and well in a good posture is crucial to a healthy lifestyle, and it's also crucial to minimizing inflammation. As a matter of fact, when people complain about pains in their shoulders, sometimes the chiropractor doesn't even look at the shoulder, doesn't do anything to the shoulder, just looks for the part in the spine, the position in the spine that the nerve outflow supplies the shoulder at, and works on that position in the spine. And many times that issue in the shoulder is taken care of. So I want you to emphasize that. Excuse me. Rick Deitch, a wonderful presenter, brilliant guy. Don't tell him I said this, but really smart guy. And he has done a couple of presentations for us on their breakthrough. Nutrapharma is his company, and their breakthrough is called Cobroxin. Now, this is specifically for pain. This doesn't deal with the inflammation itself. It's specifically for pain, okay? So you've still got to, the greatest mistake you can make is just mask the pain and not do anything about the underlying factor, okay? So you've got to deal with the problem as well. But obviously some people can't deal with anything. They can't think of anything unless the pain is taken care of. And what I love about this Cobroxin, it comes in a spray and in a gel. But what I love about it is that it works at the local site where the pain is, but it also works in the brain where you sense the pain. So it blocks your sensation of pain at two main areas. That is amazing. And believe it or not, it's from the cobra venom. How they come up with these things, I am totally amazed. But again, this is the 21st century, so there's an explosion of information. If you want to take advantage of Cobroxin, they're not paying us anything, but they are giving everybody a discount who uses the code right there called Building Strength. Go to the website www.cobroxin.com and put that discount code in, and you should be able to get a good discount. This offer ends at the end of May, end of the month, so be sure to take advantage of it. Alright, we've spoken about chronic inflammation. Now let's talk about silent inflammation, and here's the man, I believe, who coined that term. Again, his book is called The Anti-Inflammation Zone. Very, very, very important book to read. Great stuff. Alright, let's talk about chronic disease, silent inflammation. Remember all the things that we have, whether it be cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's disease. These are just the tips of the iceberg. The problem, the underlying cause is silent inflammation. And the key to inflammation, according to Dr. Sears, is eicosanoids. Eicosanoids. You don't need to remember how to pronounce that. Balance is the key, and imbalance of eicosanoids is the foundation of chronic disease. And the reason why he says that is because the eicosanoids are what regulates, again, the hormones, the hormonal balance. The eicosanoids talk to the immune cells. The eicosanoids regulates even the blood vessels. One of the things with inflammation is that the blood vessels the walls of the blood vessels become very porous, and so lots of the immune cells can leak out of the blood vessels. The red blood cells can leak out, the platelets can leak out and enter the space around the blood vessels and deal with the problem. Someone's asking, is it possible to experience chronic screaming pain without inflammation? Is it possible? That's a really good question. Is it possible to experience chronic screaming pain without inflammation? It's possible, I guess. Yes, absolutely. Obviously, if a hot iron touches you and inflammation doesn't happen immediately. The pain, your nerve fibers are what perceive the pain, and so the pain is sent to the brain. So yes, it is possible. But let me think about that some more. Probably give you some more information. Eicosanoids they work as soon as there's an injury, and they cause neutrophil. I tell you what, let's forget about this. Bottom line is, the carcinoids cause inflammation. Okay. There's another thing that I'm just going to touch on, and it's called insulin resistance. Remember, one of the things that we mentioned is that as you grow older, insulin, the body's ability to respond to insulin reduces. Now, the extreme of that obviously is diabetes, when your body is not taking insulin, is not responding to insulin much at all. But even before then, before you get to that, there's something called progressive insulin resistance, which it is not full-blown diabetes. But, and let me just explain that really quickly. Your cells have to have insulin to take in glucose. Okay, so insulin opens the door for glucose to come in. Now, if your cell is not responding to insulin, it sends signals to the brain, out to the pancreas, and it says, hey, I don't have enough insulin. It thinks it doesn't have insulin, but there is enough insulin. But it sends signals saying, I don't have enough insulin. And so the pancreas begins to pump out more insulin and pump out more insulin. But still, the insulin isn't getting in, is not making contact, or is not affecting the cell like it should. Now, a large enough amount of insulin will eventually do that. By sheer numbers, it's going to overwhelm the cell, and the cell is eventually going to respond. But here's the thing, that large amount of insulin in the blood, in the tissues, begins to have some untoward effects in the body, and those are some of the effects that it has. I want to call your attention specifically to the cytokines. These again are the inflammatory chemicals. They are pro-inflammatory, and they can cause more migration of cells. They cause the production of more pro-inflammatory carcinoids, which is up there. So insulin resistance, and of course, the heavier you are, the more fat you have, or the more weight you have as a result of fat accumulation, the more resistant you will be as a rule to insulin. Okay, let me move on. Excess insulin. Okay, causes of chronic inflammation. I mentioned a few things. Okay, alright, someone says it is possible. I agree. Now, let me just go back a little quick. Let me go back. Causes of chronic inflammation, we've mentioned a list. Insulin, pro-inflammatory carcinoids, toxins, excess fat, excess circulating cortisol. Does this look familiar? Yes, it does. Let's look back at what happens as we age. And remember, this is from the age of 30 onwards, so I assume everybody on this webinar is in that category. Most young people really aren't interested in coming to listen to a subject on inflammation, because they're pretty much bulletproof. I mean, they're healthy and in great shape. I know they're not as interested because I've tried. I've gone to universities and gone to explain these things to me, and they were just yawning and falling asleep in front. They were rolling their eyes at me. I was like, I mean, that really gave me a warm feeling all over. Alright, so insulin resistance, these things all happen as you age. Increased acidity, and there has been an explosion of alkaline water, ionized water, and these all things. People are seeing some great results with that. There has also been a lot of backlash from the medical community on the whole topic of ionized water, because there are some scams out there. So the jury's still out on that. I know next thing someone's going to send me a text saying, no, it is not out. It works. It works very well. Okay. Let's go on more to silent inflammation, the problem with it, and we're going to talk about a couple of diseases that specifically relate to silent inflammation and what you need to do to be able to deal with it. Excuse me. Let's first of all talk about heart disease and silent inflammation. Quite about 98% from what I understand, 98% of what of all heart disease is caused by inflammation. So the other 2% will probably be congenital diseases or just obstruction problems. But inflammation is what causes 98%. So again, this makes it a very, very, very important topic. Pictorial view: silent inflammation affects the brain and the heart the most. They just, for some reason, happen to be the most susceptible. And here's a list of the diseases associated with silent inflammation. Probably should have mentioned autoimmune diseases as well. Remember, these slides, we probably got about close to 140 slides. We are 3/4 of the way through, so have no worry. Now, these slides are obviously available for all members, so if you want to get a copy of these slides, just and you're a member, obviously, just send us a text and we will send it to you. Not the slides themselves, maybe the handouts, but not the slides. Okay, remember the top 5 causes of death? Let me go back and let's put that in perspective. A lot of the diseases associated with that are associated with silent inflammation are also among most of the top 5 causes of death. So very, very important. Let's talk about heart disease. Heart disease obviously is the #1 killer. And here are some pictures of death rate from heart disease, and you can see it right here. This is the Midwest. No, this is like the South. Heart disease country. I live in Oklahoma right there, so I guess that's heart disease country. And I know that it so happens that most of these areas that we're looking at are some of the heaviest weight-wise. I think Detroit. Is that Detroit up there? I'm not sure where Detroit is. Shows you how long I've been in this country. But these red areas are also happen to be where there's a lot of obesity. Okay. Let's examine some things. Stress has to do with can affect heart disease. You may not see this, I'm not sure you can, but let me just read it out. It's the top one. 50% of all heart attack victims had normal cholesterol level. Now think about that. We are told that the main issue with heart disease, you've got to keep your cholesterol levels low. And by the way, that's the lower limit of normal for cholesterol has been slowly being brought lower and lower and lower. So at one time 120 was okay. Now they've at one time probably 150 or 160 was okay, but then they said it wasn't good enough, and then they're bringing it lower to about 120, then lower to about 100. And the danger with that is that this focus on cholesterol, which by the way is a very important nutrient for the body, it helps us to do a lot of things, including the production of key hormones. But this inordinate focus on cholesterol and reducing the cholesterol using drugs leaves us open for other conditions, including heart disease, which we're trying to prevent in the first place. So and again, it's even cholesterol levels. So if all you're doing is focusing on cholesterol, I mean, it's just the 50% who have high cholesterol that you may be saving, and it's certainly not anywhere close to that 50%. The other 50% had low cholesterol levels, and they still died of heart attacks, or they still had heart attacks. So you've got to look to something else other than just the cholesterol. Well, we say look to health, look to building strength, and that's the topic, and that's who we are, and that's what our focus is. And we try to show you how to go about that in an intelligent, direct way. Now, here are a few diagrams. It's pretty crowded here, but what I'm trying to point at here is that inflammation is going on in every part of your body. Your body is constantly being attacked. It's constantly being injured. There are lesions all over our body. It's not just when you have a cut that you notice that you've been hurt or you've been attacked. These things are constantly going on in our tissues, in our knees, in our bones, there's constant damage, repair, damage and repair. Now here's the thing, this happens in the blood vessels as well. The inner linings of the blood vessels, which are supposed to be smooth like Teflon, they're supposed to be smooth, are from time to time damaged by whatever. I mean, like I said, we're constantly being under attack. And so the response obviously is inflammation. Now we've just mentioned, or we've just said that sometimes the environment isn't right for a quick fix, and so things begin to get worse and they spiral out of control. And that's what we're seeing here. This cut right here should have been fixed. It should have been fixed, and they should not have had any more anything else go wrong. That thing should have been glued back together, and we should all go happily down the road. Now, if the environment again is bad, it does produce all these debris which should have been cleared, and that debris may persist. And you see that when there's a debris in a lining that is supposed to be smooth and shiny, when there is debris and roughness there, that causes more accumulation. It's kind of like it becomes a focal point, and so things like platelets and other debris will be drawn to that, and they'll begin to stick to each other and begin to accumulate. Once in a while, that thing can become so large they can break off. You can see over here, it can actually break off and can go to a smaller vessel and actually break and block the smaller vessel. And that's when you hear about a heart attack, because if the blood vessel is blocked, then everything after that blood vessel, which the blood vessel was supposed to supply, can die or can become the word obviously is called ischemia, which means reduced blood vessel, or pretty much necrosis, or an infarction when it comes to the heart, a cardiac infarction, and that's as a result of blockage or a rupture of a blood vessel. I'm not doing as good a job as I should have, but we're having Dr. Harry back to come talk about this some more. But here's another picture right here. These, what we call the carotid arteries, this is the heart right there. These arteries supply the brain. Okay, as you can see, they supply the brain. Now, if there are plaques, and remember, what causes a plaque is an injury, and then it's an injury that it is not well taken care of, and so it causes accumulation of debris and junk and platelets and all that, and they eventually block and cause obstruction. And you can see, and that's what is called a plaque, by the way, and it also includes cholesterol deposits as well. This is a little rarer because these are big vessels. The bigger the vessel is, the less likely it is going to cause major issues, because it has a wide enough lumen, a wide enough aperture through which the blood can pass. But if it's a small blood vessel or a capillary, that causes more trouble. And again, in diabetes or in diabetics, they are a little bit more susceptible to blockage because their blood vessels are already compromised as a result of the high sugar and high insulin in the body, and that causes the blood vessels to become smaller, the apertures to become narrower, because the environment in which they live is more prone to inflammation, unfortunately, and that causes disease, and that causes blockage, and all kinds of crazy things happen. Alright, so hopefully you've seen the pictures. This is what is meant to be a normal blood vessel, and this is what happens when the blood vessel gets blocked. Sometimes it can go on for a very long time. Sometimes up to 70% can be blocked without you experiencing anything. But if something happens all of a sudden, like you have the loss of a loved one, for instance, can trigger off a major problem in your body. It can actually cause your blood vessels to constrict. High emotional stress can cause your blood vessels to constrict. Now, if the constriction happens in a place like this one, then what I do? Okay, if the constriction happens in a place like this blood vessel, well, there wasn't much left anyway, and so that can cause damage, especially if it's in the heart blood vessel. Alright, here's a question. Wouldn't the inflammatory process immediately kick in following the burn as the healing process? Well, yeah, it does. But again, inflammation doesn't always work as well as we hope or it is meant to work. And because of the problems that we mentioned before, like toxicity, poor nutrition, if you have a lot of fat in your body, if your hormones are out of whack, the inflammation does not work like it should. So the inflammation can eventually be the problem itself. So the issue might have been a small one, but it spirals out of control because the inflammatory process that was meant to solve the problem actually becomes the problem. Say a word about the connection between inflammation and allergies and what to do about allergies. Okay, I'll say a word about that. Let me finish this one about the brain first. Inflammation. Please remind me if I don't get back to it, Akura, okay? Please let me know. Alright, we've talked about the heart, and now let's talk about the brain. For some reason this air conditioner is not working, and I've got lights all over me. This is terrible. Okay. Let's talk about the brain. You see, it's the same process that works in the heart, in the brain, in the feet, in the nose, in the eye, everywhere, every tissue in your body. Again, the vital organs like the heart and the brain and the kidneys and the pancreas, for some reason, are more prone to this, and part of it is because they just cannot withstand the kind of damage that would happen probably in the liver, for instance, which is has a lot more regenerative power than the heart and the brain does. I wish that was not so, but that's how we were designed, I guess. Okay, let's look at the brain. When there is a constriction or there's a blockage to a blood vessel, and let's go back to that so you can see that. If this blockage, if the blockage happens in a part of the brain, if it's just a narrowing of the brain, the part of the brain that blood vessel is meant to supply does not function like it should, and that could cause inflammation of the brain itself. Not just of the blood vessel, but of the brain itself. So whenever there's a stress, the brain responds by inflammation. Okay. Now, when it comes to things like Alzheimer's disease, because older people generally have less circulation in their brain and their hearts, again because blood vessels in their brain and their heart have a little less of an aperture. And this is what I mean by an aperture. You see right here, that lumen, all this is space through which the blood passes. Older people seem to have less than, it may not always be as bad as this one is, but it's usually not as good as this one is, the first one to the left. So already there's some compromise to the circulation in the brain. Now, if the person is prone or has a genetic predisposition to a condition like Alzheimer's disease, that can be triggered. Not always, but it can be triggered by a reduction in the aperture of the blood vessel that supplies the part of the brain that deals with Alzheimer's disease. One of the things the brain does when it's under stress and it goes under inflammation is that it forms what is known as amyloid deposits. I mean, again, that is debris that have gone out of control. Debris, cholesterol, and all these other things begin to form in those areas of the brain, which can result obviously in lowered cognition, memory lapses, behavioral problems, reduced sensation. So inflammation, again, is the point I'm trying to make, is that it is one of the core issues behind things like Alzheimer's disease. And here are a few things that has been said with regarding as regards to brain issues. silent inflammation attacks nerve cells in the brains of those predisposed to Alzheimer's disease. So it not only does it affect the blood vessels, but it also affects the nerve cells. And the person who really did a good job about this is Dr. John Zenk. He is the CEO of a company that's I think it's pharmaceutical as well as research, that they're coming up with some of the best, some good high-tech research into Alzheimer's disease and production of drugs that can help to reduce the progression and hopefully cure Alzheimer's disease. Alright, well, we don't have to wait until they come up with a cure, do we? There are things that we can do right now, especially if you're concerned about these things. Trust me, folks, I keep saying 21st century. If you're concerned about these things, your body has the ability to turn these things, or turn even silent inflammation around. It can stop silent inflammation, and it can reverse it so that you can not have to worry about these things again. So it's a lot of things can be done. Here are some suggestions. Let's go with the general principle. Remember, keep in mind that the day you stop fighting inflammation is the day you start to accelerate the aging process, along with all the chronic diseases that come along with it. True words. We talk about the 4 principles, fundamentals of healthy living. Obviously, a sound, healthy mind works. Diets, proactive approach. You've got to know what questions to ask your doctor. Let's talk about nutrition. There are about 7 food groups. You've got to have a balanced approach to all of them. If you're eating junk food only, well, you are not obviously having a balanced approach to it. I'm going to touch on fiber. Fiber is extremely important. No matter what else you do, you've got to take fiber. If you're not getting that in your veggies, well, get fiber supplements. There are lots of good ones out there as well. Fiber helps to reduce, it helps to combat the glucose surge. It helps to keep your glucose levels under control. Fiber also helps to deal with toxins, helps you remove toxins from your body. It also helps you remove excess hormones like estrogen from the body. Specifics, that's what we're all talking about, right? Now remember, we're not trying to give you a cure. Don't get me in trouble. We're trying to give you things that you can do along with your medical doctor, because he is there to take care of your disease. You have to take care of your health. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself that he knows everything about health. He knows a lot about disease. And if you keep saying, well, I need to know if this is right for me or that is right for me, you've got to do your own research as well. And a good question you can ask your doctor. A good question you can ask your doctor is if you are recommended a specific nutritional supplementation. Ask him if it is good for you. Ask him if there's any reason why you should not take it. Ask him if there's a contraindication to taking this nutritional supplement, and wait for his answer. Because again, you cannot assume that because you're taking a balanced diet that you are getting the right nutrients for your body. I personally do not believe that anything you do can provide you with all the nutrients unless you're supplementing with nutritional supplementation. And believe me, there used to be a lot of complaints about, oh, these are not food-based, or they're not plant-based supplements, and they're not absorbed very well in the body. Well, that has all changed. There are companies out there that are making sure that the food groups, that the nutritional supplementation you are getting is as natural and as close to eating food as possible, and your body recognizes it. Your body takes care of it the way it would take care of the food that you chewed and put in your mouth. So there are great supplements out there that you can use. Alright, let's talk about dealing with inflammation. obviously I mentioned that you've got to start with the most important thing, the offending factor, the toxin. And what better place to start than fat? We now know that fat is not just, the problem is not just that you're not looking good or you've got this heavy weight you've got to lug around. Fats, they are finding out fat is actually, the fat cells actually are pro-inflammatory, amongst other things. They cause inflammation, they cause free radical damage, they cause oxidation, they also produce some bad hormones. So the first start to dealing with inflammation or making your body hostile, or making your body not friendly towards inflammation, is to reduce the amount of fat in your body. And if you're already lean, well, there are other things you can do as well. Atherosclerosis, all those pictures we showed you about the blood vessels getting narrower and harder, that's all those deposits that are put on the inside of the blood vessel make the blood harder as well, so it makes it less pliable. Blood vessels are supposed to be flexible and pliable, so when blood passes through, it passes through smoothly. With atherosclerosis, with those deposits on the inside, it becomes stiff. We don't want that, because that can cause hypertension and a lot of other nasty things. And atherosclerosis, they have found out, is connected to excess fat in the body. Sorry, I cannot hold the fat. I can't. Thank you, Joan. I appreciate this. Sorry, I can't hold the slides long. We are out of time. Like I said, if you remember, just send to us. The slides they will be sold. So I think it's about $5 for the whole handouts if you're not a member. So you can order that afterwards. Sorry about that, Michelle. I apologize, but we got to get through all this. And I'm getting hungry as well. Yuck. So Gil Cates did a wonderful presentation, and we're going to try and get him back. He is one of the top researchers when it comes to body composition, and he has documented a lot of findings that have to deal with excess fat and how that affects the body. Cytokines. Mentioned cytokines. These are one of the toxins. Well, it's not a toxin. It's produced by your body, but it's produced to deal with inflammation for a short time and leave. The problem is that cytokines, they accumulate and they stay longer than they should, and that eventually causes damage not just to the immune process, but also to your normal cells. This again is connected with fat. Indeed, physicians now commonly measure certain markers of inflammation known as C-reactive protein as a means for screening people at risk of cardiovascular disease. What they are basically saying is they want to find out how much inflammation you have. Once they find out that, well, this person's body is on the inflammatory side, or at a dangerous level of inflammation, that is a good sign to them that this person is going to have heart disease. So we're beginning to have a paradigm shift. Before, they would focus on your heart and just check your heart strength and do all the tests on the heart, and then they'll give you a clean bill of health if they find nothing wrong with the heart. Well, they're finding out that that is not enough, because I know personally a person who was given a clean bill of health within 2 months, I think, had a massive heart attack that required a miracle. They had to have a transplant. Luckily, everything came together at the right time, and they were able to get the right donor and the right fit, and that turned things around. But the point I'm trying to make is that he was tested. His cardiovascular system was tested. So C-reactive protein. If you turn your attention to inflammation and check to see if inflammation is a problem in this person, and most people have inflammation, just so you know. So that is a good way to to give you signs, and hopefully you will make the right decisions concerning reducing your inflammation. Reduction in body fat content are associated with healthy reductions in inflammatory markers such as CRP, and that means reduction in the many risk factors associated with obesity related inflammation. Make sense? Good. And here's the man who did the presentation for us, and I need to get him on video again so everybody can see his handsome face. Dr. Sears. Oh. There's Dr. Sears, and the role of Dr. Sears has what it's known as the zone diet, and I understand that Harvard Medical School has given him the thumbs up for his diet, and they have shown that his diet is probably more effective than anything out there for reducing fat levels and also reducing inflammation, because that is the focus of his diet. That's why it's called the zone diet, or the anti-inflammatory diet, and that is it right there. They compared his zone diet with what the U.S. Department of Agriculture recommends, the diet they recommend, and they found out that his diet reduces CRP. Remember, CRP is the marker for inflammation, and they found out that his diet did a much better job of reducing CRP levels than the USDA does. So the number one thing you want to take care of is fat. You got to keep your fat levels low, and also you got to keep focus on toning down inflammation. And of course, the number one way to do that is through reduction of fat. As we grow older, we have a greater susceptibility to increase or accumulate fat than when we're younger. The next thing I'm going to touch on is I'm going to step on toes here, but it's sugar. You got to reduce your sugar intake. And it's not by going diet sodas either. That can cause other problems, so you don't want to do diet sodas. I have a suggestion. We have a recommendation called Trehalose. And J.C. Spencer of the Medical Endowments, that's him right there, Trehalose is about 50% as sweet as table sugar is. However, it has several other benefits, amazing benefits. I mean, he has done presentation after presentation after presentation on Trehalose, and I'm just amazed at the research that is coming out on that. It's a kind of sugar that has some tremendous beneficial effects. So it's not just about making things sweet, and it isn't that much more expensive than what you would spend on regular sugar. So I really recommend you take a look at that. JC is a great guy, lovely guy, love him. Back to our picture on toxins. Okay, we've talked about sugar, we've talked about fat. Let's look at the other toxins. I'm going to go through each of them and a recommendation for them to you. Let's talk about chemicals and heavy metals. Strongly recommend. We're going to be showing the video tomorrow for the whole weekend, right, Sherry? We are going to do. He did a 2-hour presentation. Dr. Longkey did, and this is a brilliant man. He is triple board certified. That's right, triple board certified. I mean, where does he have the time to even breathe? But it is a very busy man. We had to do it on a weekend because he didn't have time during the week. Anyway, he did a topic called Invisible Killers, and again he spent like 2 hours on it. The presentation is he goes through all the toxins, chemical, heavy metal, radiation, and all those things, and he makes some really good recommendations. One of the key recommendations he makes is a product. It's a naturally occurring mineral called a zeolite with a Z, and the company produces. It's not his company. He is not affiliated with the company, but he has used it with his with his patients and he uses in his practice, and they remove heavy metals and toxins from the body in a way that is fascinating. My dear friend Linda had some tooth fillings and had heavy metal fillings, and even she was having headaches from that, and she used the zeolites, and the zeolites took care of that because it actually removes heavy metals from your body. It also removes toxins. If you've got a drug overdose, it also helps remove the excess drugs from the body. So zeolites are the way to go, especially if you're concerned about toxicity. If you're talking about bacteria, viruses, molds, amazing thing, the silver solution. Gordon Pedersen spoke about it. Cindy Eden, the Silver Queen, spoke about it as well. And there are DVDs and transcripts available for that. They gave discounts, but I think the discounts are over. But this company, I think ProBioSil, was giving out discounts for that. Okay, well, how do you spell what? Zeolites or what? Silver Soul? Tell me what you want me to spell, Michelle. Alright, let's talk about the immune cells. The immune cells are the other player in the whole process. The immune system. Zeolites, okay, zeolites is Z-E-O-L-I-T-E-S. Z-E-O-L-I-T-E-S. Alright, the immune system, very, very important part. Z-E-O-L-I-T-E-S. And we can also direct you to where you can get them. So just shoot us an email or something. The immune system, okay, very, very important. It's a very important system. What we want to do is know what to do to empower the immune system, so that it doesn't, when it's dealing with inflammation, when it's working in inflammation, it's able to do its work well. It is not encumbered by the toxic burdens, by the toxins, by bacteria. So you want to reduce the burden on the immune system, and I've mentioned a couple of things that can help you do that, but you also want to empower, strengthen those immune cells. Remember, we talked about the macrophage, which is the big eater. That's probably the most important immune cell. And the key thing that makes the macrophage work, that helps the macrophage do its work, is a sugar, believe it or not, a sugar called mannose. And that mannose is what has been found to be the active ingredient in the aloe plant. And Dr. Bill McAnally is the one who discovered, groundbreaking discovery, I have to say. He found out that the ingredient in the aloe plant was the mannose, and the mannose is what helps the macrophage in the immune system work. And it's not, obviously not just the macrophage, it's the mannose does a lot of other things for other immune cells and other tissues in the body. So I really, really, really recommend glyconutrients, especially aloe-based products. Alright, chemicals, let's talk about chemicals a little bit. Antioxidants, anti-inflammatories are very, very, very very, very important, and there are lots of them. There are antioxidants that come in juices, the antioxidants that come in fruits, the antioxidants that come in pills, and we have a few recommendations for you. Dr. Sami did a really good presentation on super antioxidants, and he kind of covered a lot of all that. Again, if you want to a good antioxidant or anti-inflammatory, let us know. We'll direct you to the right people. Most of them we're not even getting paid for, really, to be quite frank with you. I mean, we just want to be a good resource that you can approach, and you won't get scammed by all the competing products out there. Blood vessels. Okay, let's talk about blood vessels, because inflammation. What inflammation does? The inflammation kind of makes the aperture, the lumen, makes the blood vessel narrower. And so you want to be able to not just take care of the inflammation, but to make sure that that space, the aperture, is wide enough to let blood pass through. So back to the cardiovascular system, very, very important area here, because it's the cardiovascular system that supplies blood to all the organs in your body. And by the way, your brain, which is about 2% of your body's weight, consumes about 20% of all the nutrients and oxygen that come to it, that come into the body. Of course, that is carried to it by the blood. So that's just a tidbit. I'm not going to charge you anything extra for that. Dr. Hari and Dr. Sami did a great job on arginine. Amazing. It's a protein, it's an amino acid. And these three people won the Nobel Prize in 1998 for the discovery of how arginine helps to make the blood vessels wider, or it helps to make the blood vessels smoother, the lining of the blood vessels smoother. It helps to reduce plaque formation in the blood vessels. And here's the example again. You see here, you see the lining. This is the lining of the blood vessel here. So the blood passes through and comes out in that direction. So the plaque is accumulating here. And there you go, the plaque, that's the yellow thing. It has cholesterol in it, of course, as well. So this is a healthy blood vessel here, and then this is a plaque buildup. But you can see it is narrowing from the healthy. The healthy part is wider, but with the use of arginine, which produces nitric oxide helps to widen the blood vessel and helps reduce plaque. Like I said, with the introduction of arginine, it helps to reduce the damage that can be caused by a narrowed blood vessel. And here's what it says: NO dilates the vessels and increases blood flow. NO increases oxygen supply and protects the heart and other organs from damage and cell death. NO makes nitric oxide makes the interior surface of the arteries like Teflon, so that nothing sticks. Because here's the thing, as long as you have these plaques there, right here, as long as you have those plaques there and nothing is done about it, they form a focus for things to stick. So NO helps to smoothen the surface. It makes it less rough, so it no longer forms a focus for things to stick. Alright, so someone says he has gotten the answer to the question. Okay, so are we making progress? Are you guys understanding this? This is good stuff. This is okay. You're not falling asleep on me, are you? Hope not. Alright, so this is research done on rats, and you can see the plaque again. They created a circumstance in which there was in the lining of the blood vessel lots of plaque formation, and then after a while they gave them arginine, and you can see the plaque has been reduced. Let's talk about omegas, omega-3s. You've got to have enough omega-3s in the diet, because omega-3s help to produce more anti-inflammatory eicosanoids. Omega-3s do a lot of other things, like they help the brain to recover, they help the brain tissue, because really 60% of the brain's solid weight is made up of fatty acids, of which omega-3s comprise a large percent of that fatty acids. Okay, omega-6s cause inflammation, omega-3s antagonize omega-6s, and the ratio should be about 1:1 or maybe 2:1 or something. Now it's a lot worse. So we are having a lot more omega-6s in our diets, and I think it's the bad omega-6s. I think there are some good omega-6s, and then there are some not so good omega-6s. So we're having a lot more of the nasty omega-6s, and the omega-3s we're just not getting in our diet. A lot of it can be found in fish and some vegetables, but we're just not getting enough omegas. Really not enough at all. Alright. Turmeric is another one. It's found, there are some companies that are producing some really good turmeric. Is like it's Ayurvedic. It's found in Ayurvedic medicine. It works on coenzyme 2, COX-2. I mentioned mangosteen and the xanthones. They also inhibit coenzyme 2. enzymes. So anti-myeloidogenic. Now, what in the world does that mean? Well, amyloid deposits are those things that they found in patients with Alzheimer's disease, and they're like kind of like the plaque you see in the blood vessels. They found out that these amyloid deposits are in the brain, and they in parts of the brain where they obstruct and they counteract the normal function of brain cells. So turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory, can oppose that, and there are some products that have turmeric in them, or curcumin. But I believe that any potent anti-inflammatory would be able to do something similar to that as well. So you've got to have anti-inflammatories along with antioxidants in your nutritional supplementation plan. Alright, we've finally come to the end. Whoa, like 2 hours. Man, no wonder I'm searching for words here. Okay, let's go over the things that you should do when it comes to combating inflammation. Remember, you've got to stay on top of it. When you stop is the day you start accelerating the aging process, along with all the chronic diseases that come along with it. So let's talk about. So we've talked about reducing stress, weight, specifically fat, using natural anti-inflammatory agents. You've got to increase your intake of omega-3s. We didn't do much about phytosterols, but it's a very important aspect as well. Your endocrine system really plays a huge role in immune system modulation and inflammation modulation. But if you take care of the other things like the omegas, the anti-inflammatories, the antioxidants, you get rid of toxins, you will go a long way to taking care of the endocrine system as well. Okay? Use medications with discretion, and what's a word? Use medications with maybe discretion. Alright. What about the exercise, the role of exercise in the whole process? It's a double-edged sword for some of us. Exercise obviously is probably, there's no other one thing that can have so many health benefits as much as exercise. Exercise helps to keep things in balance. Exercise helps you to produce some nice endorphins, chemicals that help your body work better. I mean, the bottom line is movement. Movement helps blood flow. Movement helps you get rid of toxins. Movement helps you heal better. All these things have to do with exercise and movement. So yeah, very, very important. I didn't cover that here, obviously. But she made a point, Michelle did, that exercise can be a double-edged weapon if it's not done properly. As a matter of fact, Barry Sears mentioned that some of the most people who suffer from the most inflammation are athletes. Imagine that. Athletes suffer the most from inflammation, and he said it's because, well, they work their bodies so hard, and yet they don't have the nutritional support to take care of the inflammation that happens. Remember, if you're training hard, the likelihood that you're injuring yourself, or there are minor injuries going on in your body, is high. And so your body is constantly in the process of healing itself. And remember, for healing to happen, inflammation must precede it. And so athletes are constantly having inflammation in their bodies, and yet if you go to their camps, you have a lot of fast food joints there. Well, that's not going to supply the right nutrition for the inflammation to work properly. I don't think. So yeah, it is something that should be watched out for. Let me quickly go to Cora's point. Allergens and inflammation. Here's the thing. With an allergen, I mean, the bottom line, to cause an inflammation is an insult. It could be an insult, it could be a lesion, it could be an infection, it could be whatever, an injury. An allergen, especially if the person has a genetic predisposition to certain allergens, is that it triggers the allergen. Maybe, let's say, pollen gets into the nasal passages of a susceptible person. The person, there are chemicals that are released immediately to, quote unquote, they see this allergen as a threat, as a traitor, and so the body responds to it, and so they release chemicals. Histamine obviously is one you're familiar with. Some people's genetic predisposition, maybe it's a genetic thing. Others, they could have been primed over a period of time to be allergic to certain things, like milk, for instance. But whatever it is, the body begins to respond in an exaggerated fashion to what would otherwise be a harmless intruder. And so it exaggerates it, and then inflammation comes into the process, and the immune cells and the histamine and the chemicals, they all kind of like all mix up, and before you know it, you've got a vicious cycle. You've got a vicious cycle going, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I don't know if well, Michelle says I nailed it. Thank you, Michelle. Cora, does that kind of answer your question? Let's hope it does, but give me you can ask me another question if you need to. Okay. Say a word between inflammation and allergies. Okay, what do you do about allergies? We're actually working on getting someone to become an allergist, an MD who deals with allergic conditions. What they call that, I don't know. Anyway, we're working on getting someone on to come speak to us about that. What do you do about that? I think the bottom line, Cora, is for you to do these things I just mentioned. If you can keep your inflammatory predisposition at a low level, and again, that includes using antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, and using glyconutrients. I know a lot of people who have had reduced responses, allergic responses, simply because they got their bodies back into balance by giving their bodies really good nutritional products, and that helped to get things back in line. It's amazing how it happens. I mean, people with asthma, people with hyperreactive lower respiratory tracts, they got a lot better when they were given antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. So that's the way to go. How much vitamin C do you recommend for daily use? I guess a good rule of thumb would be, yeah, so I answered the question, antioxidants would help it. A good rule of thumb, 500 milligrams a day. I guess that's good enough. I mean, vitamin C is, you got to have the right kind of brand and product though. And it really isn't. If you use good vitamin C, or a good brand name or good products with vitamin C, and usually it's best to have it in combination with other nutrients. A good plant-based multivitamin supplement with good levels of vitamin C is a really good way to go. Can there be a chronic physical nerve pain without inflammation? Yes, there can be. Physical nerve pain, the nerve endings are exposed, and there's something, maybe a foreign body, or there are chemicals that are stimulating the nerve endings. Yes, there can be physical nerve pain without inflammation. It is rare. The rule is inflammation causes pain a lot, but it's possible. Remember, Cobroxin is given the what's the word? You can tell I'm hungry. Cobroxin is given the discount till the end of the month, and that does a great job of reducing pain. Okay, any more questions? We cannot answer questions specifically dealing with your results or medical conditions, so sorry, I'm going to have to skip those. Jenny, give us and send me an email, okay? Talk to me. had normal in all counts. Alright, let's see what else we have here. Okay, Michelle says I've been using Cobroxin and I'm having great response, so we already have a testimonial here. Okay. Thank you, Joan, for giving me permission to take off my jacket. I just decided to endure it. Is tomography a good idea to find out where inflammation is located? I think the question is tomography a good idea to find out where inflammation is located? No, I think you've got to look out for markers. Some of these imaging techniques are not as sensitive to find minute things like inflammation. So C-reactive protein is a good way to go, and Dr. Sears has an AA / another ratio thing that he uses to really nail put a finger on how much inflammation is going on. What is the lab for ESR? Erythrocyte sedimentation rate. What does the lab for ESR measure? Well, someone's saying what is the lab for ESR measure? I'm not sure I know what your question is, but ESR means erythrocyte sedimentation rate, which is a red blood cell, how fast the red blood cell sediments. That again is another marker for inflammation, but it is not as sensitive as things like the CRP and the ratio. All right, I think I gotta end it all here. We've dealt with questions. I don't have her picture up, but you guys have to be on for Cora's presentation on Tuesday. It's called Living Life Fully After Loss, and really very important information she's going to be sharing. On Thursday we'll be having Dr. Mead do a presentation on how to measure your hormone levels using saliva. Okay. You guys will have to let me go. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll call it a night or a day, and we will speak with you later. Thanks. God bless. Bye.